It's 5:30 p.m. on Tuesday, April the 18th, 2023. We call this regular meeting of the Kingdom School District of order. We'll have roll call. Joe Morales. Here. Martin Chapa. Here. David Garcia. Present. Joseph Reese. Here. James Lucing. Here. Delma Salinas.
Here.
Brian Kufal is here. Let the record show there is a quorum of board members present. And this meeting has been posted in accordance with Governing Code Chapter 551 of the State of Texas Open Meetings Act. We move to the moment of silence, followed by the Pledge of Allegiance and the Texas Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Under the Texas flag, let the Union City, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible. All right, we move now to the announcement that the meeting will be live video streamed. And we move to item number 4, the adoption of the agenda. Do I have a motion to adopt the agenda? Motion made by Ms. Salinas. Seconded by Mr. Morales. Any discussion? All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item number 5, public participation. Ms. Pettis, do we have anyone that wishes to address the board?
Yes, sir. We have the first one is Richard Butson. She's a parent, and it's in reference to agenda item 8B.
All right. Ms. Gottschalk, if you'd like to come to the podium and address the board.
Good evening. My name is Tricia Gottschalk, and I'm a parent of KISD. I'm here to talk to you on a matter I wish for you to consider concerning item 8B on the agenda tonight. As we approach the end of the school year, I believe we will all agree IEPs and 504 services should be well in place, with all teachers delivering all accommodations to all students. However, this is not the case at H.M. King High School. With less than 6 weeks away from the end of the year, and the same teachers still not providing accommodations to SPED kids. Accommodations continue to be denied. Students do not have IEPs or 504s with teachers. They have them with the district. The board has provided additional funding and additional administration over the 3 years under this leadership. Yet still today, accommodations were denied to a student within her IEP. I hope the board looks at the problems within the SPED department and places responsibility and accountability at the top. All students have a right to equal educational opportunities. Leadership of our district has denied students this by hiding, not addressing, or making excuses as to why accommodations are not being provided. Accountability starts at the top. I ask you, each of you, as a board, to discuss and put in place a system to monitor and hold our administration accountable for services to the SPED students. They deserve it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gottschalk. Our next speaker will be Elizabeth Ramos.
Good afternoon, Board of Trustees. I guess I'll just reiterate everything she said. She said it all for me just right now. I want to come here and just say thank you to all the teachers that work here at KIC every day through the mounds of piles of work that they have been given every day on how to other work. And are somehow coming in the next day with smiles on their face. I appreciate all of you. I appreciate the teachers because if it weren't for them, I wouldn't be at this district today. Period. When it comes to that, when it comes to the superintendent goals on the agenda, you should all have a discussion about the truth. The superintendent has to give you an all honest picture about where special education at KISD stands. You need to come up with a plan on how you will have oversight over this issue. Just like the parent before me, I too have gone through similar experiences. I know a couple of board members here who have also had personal experiences negatively with special education at KISD. KISD is not in compliance, period. KISD doesn't have enough employees taking care of the enormous bed population that is growing by the day. And thank you, teachers, for trying to pick up that slack. Come up with a procedure or a plan to monitor the superintendent's goal for special education. I really wish you would publish your goals on the district website. That would show a little bit of transparency. By no way are my statements negative to all teachers and staff, but some teachers just don't want to follow the rules. This stems from the top. And improvement starts with the elected board of trustees. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Ms. Rhodes. We move now to item number 6, which is communication from administration. Item 6A is a 2022-2023 benchmark assessment. This will be found in our packet on pages 3 through 60 and will be presented by Dr. Farah and Ms. Sabaya.
Good evening, Mr. President, members of the board, Dr. Perez, community. Our presentation today is the spring data. But before we go into our spring data, we're going to go ahead and go over the accountability system refresh, as well as the STAR redesign. And then we'll go into the elementary data, secondary data, and then the action steps that are being followed as a result of the data. All right, so I will give you an overview of the new accountability updates. These are proposed updates as of March 27, 2023. Again, these are some of the updates that we felt were important to bring to you to give you big picture changes that are going to be affecting the overall accountability rating of all districts in Texas. All right, the first one is, the first proposed change is that the district ratings, how those are calculated. DEA is proposing that districts are rated by proportionally weighing the accountability ratings of each campus. So to understand that, in 2022 and before, district ratings were very similar to high school ratings. So this is an example of a district, not ours, but a district across Texas who had some elementary campuses, middle school campuses that earned C, Ds, or Fs, yet the district had an overall rating of a B because, again, the district rating mirrored the high school rating. This was 2022 and before. Moving forward, the proposed proportional weighting of campuses would affect districts in a different manner. Each campus would have a proportional weight based on their enrollment of 3rd through 12th grade students. And so this particular slide, even though it's a little difficult to see up there, I know you have it in front of you, it's actual data from our district. So if you take a look at the campuses, the high school being one of the, would have a higher weight because of the enrollment would be higher. So the higher enrollment between 3 to 12 gives us a higher weight towards the overall district rating. So if you look at this slide, this is a what if example of where we would stand using the 2022 accountability ratings scores, if nothing changed from 2022, using the same scores and using the weight method, you see that we scored a 78 this year. With the new proposed changes, the district would be a 71. That's if nothing changed, if we were to end up at the same, with all the same scores from 2022, using this new methodology, we would go from a 78 to a 71.
And that the commissioner has held his cabinet meetings and stated to all cabinet members and to superintendents that we should expect districts to drop a grade level this next year with the STAR redesign because of all the changes in accountability, and I'm sure as you've heard the same thing. Yes. So this is why they're showing a what if, because with the new design and the new accountability standards, this is what it would look like had they done the redesign, the refresh this past year.
Right. So I think this is a really a big picture change over the since it's been introduced, and TA has collected public input. This has not gone away, so it tells us that this is very likely going to be something that's going to happen this coming year for accountability ratings. All right, so the next big proposed change is changes to CCMR, the College Career and Military Ready. Okay, so this again, this is an example of a fictitious example, Learn a Lot High School. If we had a raw score of 66 in the 2022 accountability rating, a 66 raw score, meaning 66% of our seniors graduating with a CCMR point, that would scale to a 92. But with the new proposed changes, that same 66 would now scale to a 71. Again, there's another example, a 63 raw score in the 2022 accountability ratings would be a 91. However, with the new proposed changes, that would be a 69. So what used to get us an A will no longer get us an A. They embraced, that scaling formula. A 60 in the 2018 to 2022 accountability system was an A. In 2023, that would be an 88. So it's a difference between an A and an B, and so forth.
And I think it's important to note that with CCMR, it's a year behind. So like for this year, we're talking about the 2022 cohort that graduated. Theirs would count for this year.
Right.
And theirs, the way we're looking at it, would have probably been an A because of like 5960. But now, with the higher standards, we can't actually go back to those students and have them do even more because they've already graduated and gone.
Right.
So this is what you're kind of hearing in the uproar from all the districts in the state is they're talking about the redesign, the refresh, the fact that they're changing the rules in the middle of the game while the game is happening. And so this is what we're trying to explain. They're explaining to us as we're going to all the training. So it's important that you all are very clear when they're talking about the redesign and the refresh of the different accountability. This is what they're talking about.
Thank you. Very correct. CCMR is a lagging indicator, and so those students are gone. So what we need to do now is prepare for the next accountability cycle for CCMR. All right, and then of course there's another big picture change is graduation rate. Very similar to CCMR. What used to get us an A with the graduation rate will now no longer do that. So again, there's an example. Learn a Lot High School with a 98.9% graduation rate in 2022. That would have given us a rating of 95. In 2023, it'll go down to 90. 97.1 in 2022 was a 90. In the 2023 accountability system, that will go down to a B. And so this, the table, what used to get us again, an A, like a 96, would get us an A, a 96% graduation rate. Now it's gonna take a 98% graduation rate to get us an A. And so as I see this table, it has increased by these 2 percentage points. Again, big picture changes for accountability. Graduation rate plays an important role, especially at high schools.
So that's a good deal, right? So this year, it's gonna be.
You know, these are still proposed changes. We won't get the final accountability manual to probably May, June, after the SAR. However, because these proposed changes have come up since the beginning when they started to make all these changes, and they've not gone away. They haven't changed any part of this, even with public input, leads me to believe they're staying, they're set. All right. Another big proposed change is domain 3. Domain 3, if you know, domain 3 is our federal accountability. This is where they count all the student groups. Big change here is in order for a student group to count in domain 3, we needed to have at least 25 tests in a subset. They are changing that 25 to 10. So little schools like, for example, Harold and Bettis Elementary, where we may not have had enough tests to count, let's say, you know, for the English learners, we didn't have 25 tests, well, they didn't count. Or, you know, we would get data, but they weren't factored into the accountability rating in domain 3. Now that 25 is going to get lowered to 10. So we're those babies, you know, those tests are going to count now. You know, we have at least 10. We count. Good thing here is it's no longer a yes or no. Yes, we meet the target, or no, we don't meet the target. Now they're looking at giving credit for growth or exceeding the target. So that's a plus. Another big change is the reporting timeline. So we know that we got an updated A through F system framework in March. There's going to be a draft of the accountability manual released at the end of April. We are going, on May 22nd, we're going to get early raw scores and supporting guidance for EOCs in grade 3 to 8, where we would get the actual scale scores for students at the end of May or early June. That will not happen. We will just get a list of student names and guidance in terms of whether are they likely to pass or are they not likely to pass. On May 31st, we will be getting preliminary scores for EOCs only. And so the reason that they're going to release those, it's of course, we're going to be waiting for those scores for the seniors that are waiting to pass the EOCs to graduate. So they'll be giving us some preliminary scores. Now, we are going to get final EOC reports August 8th, where we usually would get them, or, you know, at the end of May. This timeline is pushing it back to August 8th. On August 11th, we will get final reports for grades 3 to 8. Again, we would usually get them in the middle of June. And then we're going to get the final manual. The final accountability manual comes in mid-August. And then we're going to get our accountability ratings mid-September, where we usually used to get them at the beginning of August. So everything's being pushed back this year, even though we're all going online and we should get, you know, scores. What we anticipate is that with the short constructed responses and everything they need to grade manually, that's going to take some time for them to do that. So, all right. This page here shows you that early guidance tables, what we're going to get. We're going to get the students' names, and we're going to get likely did not pass, zone of uncertainty, or likely passed. This list we're going to get in May, but we're not going to get scale scores. We're not going to know percentages. We're just going to know, are these students falling in that range of passing or not? So lots of lemons here, right? So what do? We got to make lemonade. We got to make the best of what we have and the changes that are coming with the accountability. Now, these are not all the changes. These are the big picture changes that we know are going to affect all districts. All right. So something good. If you turn the page over, you're going to see domain 2, the academic growth. So academic growth is for the most part remaining the same. It is still a strength-based system where academic growth can help districts push through the accountability system. At the elementary and middle schools, growth makes up 85% of the accountability system. At the high school, it makes up 70%. Few minor changes to academic growth is how they will calculate the growth. So instead of just giving a point, 1 point, half a point if you're getting growth, they have split the way they're giving out the points to if they're low approaches, high approaches, low meets, high meets, low masters, high masters, depending on where they fall, you get the point or you get the so the other thing that we were all wondering, 45, 45, House Bill 45, 45. We've heard all about House Bill 45, 45. We were wondering, how are they gonna measure House Bill 45, 45 in the performance, how well we're doing across the state? Well, in academic growth, they're gonna plug in House Bill 45, 45. So what that means is students who did not pass last year and pass this year at any performance level, whether it's approaches, meets, or masters, we will be getting a point for those students. So when I think about growth, this is how I see it. The cake is the annual growth. We're gonna get most points from annual growth, and the 45, 45 performance is like icing on the cake. Again, any student that did not pass last year that passes this year, they will give us a point. It can only help, it cannot hurt us. So students that do not pass will not hurt, but if students that do pass, that didn't pass last year, will give us extra points. We call them those bonus points. So that helps the overall. All right, so now these are the big picture changes for the accountability system. Now I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Farah to talk about the study.
So good evening. We're going to talk about the STAR redesign. I'm going to go over the new question type, the online assessment, the RLA new test design, and then how it's being scored, because that is also new. So online testing was designed to offer students to take a test in a way that they are being taught in the classrooms. The new redesign is made for students to be able to answer question types, for instance, open-ended responses, or more than just a multiple choice. But remember, it's only up to 25% of the assessment this year. We also went online to offer students, or the state said to offer students with special needs access to large print, visual aids, help with the dictionary, calculation aids, line readers. All of these things are on our Cambium system that our students have been practicing. We have accessibility tools. The students, for every student who tests online, they're able to zoom in, zoom out. They're able to, there's like a little highlighter that they can use during reading a passage. If they need the ruler during their math test, the ruler is there, a dictionary, it's all online. They have also content-specific tools that students might need, and then tools that support students with specific accommodations. All of that is included on our Cambium platform, which is the testing platform that we are using this school year. It's really to offer accessibility to all students. The new item types. So you should have a document like this, and if you don't, I'll make sure you get one. And basically what this document showed you are the new item types per grade level for content. Because we are, not every content area is going to have the same item types. So for instance, in English language arts, grades 3 through EOC will all have an extended constructed response. But for instance, in mathematics, they won't have that extended constructed response. And so what this document has done, we've worked with our teachers on it so that they can say, okay, I'm the reading language arts teacher. I'm going to go down to see what different question types might be asked for my students. And then I'm going to be able to know how to help them with those types of questions. Does that make sense? So that's what this tool has been used for. We have reading language arts binders at the elementary level that we are using with them. And this is part of that English language arts binder. These are just some new types for elementary mathematics samples. So what this one, oops, sorry, we go back. What this one shows is a question about fractions, but usually what we see is the denominator on the bottom. But the way this question is asked, the parts are going to be on top. And then the numerator, which we typically put as a numerator, is on the bottom. So the students have to really read the questions and understand, okay, what's my denominator? What's my numerator? How do I make 3/10 as part of my answer? They also have to build, so they'll drag and drop like tally marks to be able to build. So they'll have a group of 5 tally marks and an individual tally mark. And then based on the question, they'll have to fill in a graph, dropping and dragging those types of tally marks. So that's a new question type for math. Here's middle school math. This is the coordinate plane. And they'll have to do 2 correct answers and pinpoint 2 coordinate planes. And so they might type those in or they might drop and drag them as well. And then this is algebra 1. So they're actually creating linear equations. First, they have to identify the type of equation, and then they have to build it within either using number lines and or graphing. These are 2-part questions. So we're seeing these 2-part questions in social studies, in science, and in reading language arts. They have to be able to get the first part of the question correct to be able to answer the second part of the question. It's basically an evidence-based type question. So they have to justify basically their answer choices in the part A, part B questions. This is an example of a short constructed response. So what are 2 significant ways in which, and this is a social studies one, the Louisiana Purchase, I can't read it, but either way, they have to write a short constructed response and then they have to provide evidence from the piece that they were reading about, which is the excerpt right there. So that's the other content areas. So I'm going to really dive into reading language arts because this is where we're going to see the biggest changes. Okay, so with reading language arts, they are adding revise and edit to all reading language arts tests, grades 3 through 8, English 1 and English 2 have already had revise and edit within their tests. So grades 3 through 8 are going to look very similar to your EOCs that we've seen in the past. Typically, or in the past, reading the revise and edit and what we're calling the essay or the extended constructed response was in 4th and 7th grade, and they were in a separate test. This year, the reading language arts test is all in one. So they'll have their reading passages, an extended constructed response based on their reading passage, revise, edit, little passages, and then that'll be their test. So that's new this year to the reading language arts for grades 3 through 8. Again, the extended constructed response is new for grades 3 through 8, and it's evidence-based. It's not just remember a time when, and I'll show you some examples. Remember a time, how can you relate to this? It's actually them going into a passage, being able to make a claim, and then provide evidence in a structured format. And then another big change is for our 3rd grade students. Our 3rd grade students didn't used to have a paired passage. That is where you read 2 passages and you answer questions on one passage, you answer questions on another passage, and then you answer questions on both passages. Typically, similar compare and contrast type questions, similarities, differences, and so forth. So this is the first year for reading language arts that has been added on to our 3rd grade babies. Okay. So here's an example of a 4th grade prompt from 2019. It tells them to think about an invention that you believe could be useful, and then they write about it. As opposed to what we're looking at now. They have to be able to explain the behavior changes of the main character and how it was developed by the playwright. That is a 4th grade expectation. Okay. And which is, it's completely different. This isn't a 7th grade example. Previously, they had to, is it better for people to learn from others, or is it better for them to learn on their own? Now, this year, explain how the friendship between Angie and Pete contributes to the development of the theme of the play. Completely different types of writing. You'll see these types of examples in English 1 and English 2 as well. Their writing has changed. Okay, so now we're gonna go to the new scoring for reading language arts. Okay, so this is how it breaks down, and I don't know if you received a document that looks like this, but this is the reading language arts breakdown. It's a pretty good size. So in 2022, the total questions that they had to answer was 34. There were 34 multiple choice tests, let's say 3rd grade, because it's a large document. So I'm just going to start with 3rd grade. And their extended constructed response, 0. They didn't have one. In 2023, with the new STAR redesign, they have 41 total questions. 38 are going to be multiple choice and the new item types. 2 are going to be the new item types, and I'll go to a deeper explanation in that in the next slide. And 1 extended constructed response. So that's a lot. The only ones that we're not seeing that big of a change in the total number of test questions will be your English 1 and English 2. Okay, so that whole grid shows you how the question numbers changed from last year to this year. Okay, now it's a point system because it's not like it was before. We're going to look at 3rd grade again. So in 2022, it was 34 questions, 34 points. They had 0 points for an extended constructed response because they didn't have one. So the whole test was worth 34 points. This year, they have 41 questions, but they're worth 52 points. So what they're going to have this year is, remember I said there were going to be 38 multiple choice / new question types that are going to be worth 1 point. So that's your 38 points. You have 2 questions that are the new question types that are worth 2 points. So that gives you your 4 points. And your extended constructed response is a total of 5 points times 2 graders, which gives you your 10. Which equals 52 points. And that's just for 3rd grade. I know. It's a huge difference for reading language arts for our 3rd through 8th grade students. Although our English 1 and English 2, they go from having 68 points to 64 points. And the biggest change for English 1 and English 2 is their essay. It used to be up to 4 points times 4 graders. It was worth 16 points. Now it's only worth 10 points. So, and it's 5 points total. So students get 3 points for the structure. It doesn't matter what grade level they're in. They get 3 points for structure of their essay. How was it written? Is it, can the reader, whoever's grading it, understand what their claim, their evidence is? Does it make sense? Right? So they have to get at least a 1 point in that structure for it to even get graded in the spelling, in the conventions piece, where they're looking at capitalization, punctuation, grammar, and so forth, right? So they have to get a 1 in structure to even, for the graders to even consider giving them a point in conventions. For them to add those 2 up, that equal 5 times 2 graders. Any questions about the new way that this is being, so we have it tested and the RLA is being scored completely different.
And as far as the benchmarks we took, did we use this scale right here to?
Yes,
all the
sir.
way through?
We modeled the benchmarks based on this new scoring system for all of the tested assessments.
Thank you.
Yes, sir. So it's a pretty heavy load for our ELA teachers, for our babies, for our instructional teacher coaches and our administrators on campuses. We've been working diligently with our reading language arts teachers as well as our other content area teachers on structure, on what this looks like, on how to utilize the rubrics that we've created. Like I said, we have at the elementary a binder at all 3 campuses that has all of this information included in it. Okay. Okay, so the next part's still mine. We're gonna look at the elementary data. So you've had a moment to look at some of the spring data, but what this is showing you are our 2023 reading language arts benchmark scores. But it's not only our benchmark scores. So I know looking at them, you might kind of cringe, and that's okay. It was a bit hard for all of us to swallow. But when you look at that new grading system to what we've done in the past, this is why. I do want to say that we've been working very hard. Our instructional teacher coaches at the elementary level have created our reviews, our lead forward reviews, and within them, they have created progress monitoring assessments for our students to take. So the first one that you see, because at elementary, we had to determine, was it the content or was it the structure of the test? We didn't know. So our elementary data is a little bit different than what you might see at secondary, because it's the first time they're really taking it on the computer. I mean, we've taken it in Educatoria all year long, but this is different. So we did our first assessment and it was just straight content. We didn't use any new question types on that second box that you see. And you can see that the scores went up. So we're like, okay, so we know for 3rd grade, they're getting the content. But if you look at the one underneath, and they're both based on informational text. If you look at the second one, those included new question types. So we were seeing, oh, maybe it's the difference in the question type. So we've been working with our teachers and our on, okay, guys, let's go into the Cambium system. Let's practice the new question types, because TEA has released practice question types. And it was so sweet. One of my teachers at Harvey was talking about how, you know, she's talking to her students and the student was like, well, I just didn't know. And she was like, why, you're doing it right now? And he's like, well, but you weren't telling us. She's like, you can do this. And sure enough, that little baby was doing it. And he's like, oh yeah, I can do this. And so a lot of it is just them understanding. They're still little, you know, they're babies. They're in 5th grade, even though we might not think of 5th graders as little, they are. And so a lot of it has just been retraining, understanding those question types. My 5th grade teacher at Harvey was talking to me, he's the science teacher, and he was talking to me today about the difference in his scores. And he goes, it was that part A and part B that kept getting them. And so he goes, so today when they took their skills check, they said, huh, this has 2 parts to it. And they were able to answer both parts. So it's just helping our students understand. Be helpful. Here's our 4th grade spring data. Again, you'll see the benchmark results. You'll see their first progress monitoring check. And that was without the new question types. And then you'll see in 4th grade with the new question types. And this is all, again, informational text. They just took their skills check on fiction text, and it was looking pretty good for all 3 campuses, but I didn't have time to include them in the PowerPoint. And then here's our 5th grade spring data. And so you can see the difference in 3rd through 5th grade, where they're at, just understanding how to utilize the computer. And then, of course, there might be some differences in the total number of students in the slides, but I just want to say, because the first one, the middle test was taken right before Easter, and sometimes our parents pull our kids out a little early. And then the second one we took was after Easter break. So there might be a difference based on if a parent pulled a student out prior to the students completing the assessments or having an opportunity to complete the assessments. This is all the math data, and then of course our science data at the bottom. It looks completely different. Again, we are working with our English language arts students and teachers on the short constructed, extended constructed, and the new item types, as well as pacing. Okay, I'm gonna give it back to Ms. Ceballos for the, did y'all have any questions for me on the elementary data?
Just on the numbers, the parents might have taken the kids out early.
Yes, sir.
For the holiday, did they go back and test those kids?
At that point, we have not had an opportunity to go back and retest, but they did take the fiction one. So we were able to just, because we're on a pacing of moving, because we have days that we're focused on informational text, and we have days that we're focusing on fiction text, and we have days that we're focusing on revise, edit, and extended constructed response. We test on 2 days, in 2 days on Thursday at elementary.
Y'all have been spiraling.
Yes.
Warm ups.
Yeah, we've been doing spiraling activities. They've been doing all kinds of great stuff at the campuses.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right. So here we have the Gillette Middle School spring data. The very first table gives you a snapshot of how they did on the benchmark. Again, the benchmark was a full release practice online test that TEA put out on the Cambium platform. So students can practice. The Cambium platform is what they're going to use to take the STAR test. This benchmark included, again, the new item types, short and extended constructed responses, as well as multiple choice questions. Lots of different variables that went into this data. Of course, questions that came up about after they took the benchmark was, well, what made them score, like this? Was it that they didn't know the content? Was it the new item types? Was it the short constructed responses? Was it the extended constructed response? And so we went back after looking at this data. We sat with teachers, talked about some of the issues that they were seeing with the testing. It was a perfect time to talk about, okay, some of them rushed through it. Some of them just, instead of, taking their time, did it within an hour, shut it down, and so we really had those heart-to-heart conversations, which was a perfect time to have it so that we could remediate, come back, make a plan of action so that they can make sure to be ready for the actual testing. So one of the things that we did was we went ahead and did a progress check based on all the adjustments that we made after this benchmark. And here, the second table, you see the scores after we made those adjustments at the campuses. And so, again, we are looking at the highly tested TEKS in the progress check so that we see what our kids are actually doing.
So I just have a question.
Yes.
So the April test and the February test is a big discrepancy in the number of students tested. Was that due to absences or?
Yes, again, it was a 1 day. We identified a day to do it. It was close to Easter. And so, yes, there is some students missing. I can tell you that we said that we open up the test for a window of time, and then it shuts down so that we're able to collect the data and gather the data. Students, teachers have called, after the following week and said, can you reopen the test because we've got more students? And so those students have had an opportunity to go back. However, for the purpose of the presentation, we took the data that was available at the time when we collected it.
Thank you.
But they're still.
You're very welcome.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And I have a question.
Yes, sir.
Related to that as well. There is a huge discrepancy in number.
Yes.
Is the number that is less, were the students that didn't take the test average students, or were they weighted either higher or lower?
I would have to go back and look at individual students and see who they are. I cannot tell you that answer at this moment, but I can tell you that progress check, I think that a lot of what was shared with us, teachers were able to go back and correct, such as, hey, take your time, pacing kids and those kinds of things. But I cannot tell you exactly who are the rest of the kids that did not take it.
And that's my issue is we have more than a third of difference in the number of students that took it, for instance, 8th grade. It goes from 180 to 104.
That may have been a day, either band, concert, travel.
It was.
One of those traveling, that was either the athletes. but we can bring them back, let's find out where they.
And that's,
That's-
that's important, because other than that, this.
It's just an average.
8% doesn't tell me anything. Because I didn't know, it didn't show up.
Right.
Thank you.
It wouldn't be all the top kids and it wouldn't be all the bottom kids, it would be an average, probably.
So comparing the 180 to 104.
Right.
Right,
How many of them are the same students?
we'd have to go back and measure that, definitely, but we can get to that data, absolutely. All right, and so here's the math again, the mathematics data. We also did a progress check from February to April. And here's what we're seeing our students score in the data. Again, there is some discrepancy on the number of students that were tested. All right, and then here we have the science and the social studies data.
That's just the benchmark.
It is the benchmark data. They are doing ongoing daily skills checks in progress. Okay, high school data, we have the English 1 and English 2 benchmark data. They also did a progress check. There are some students missing from this data. Again, we can take a look at that and bring that to Dr. Bettis and have her share with you all. We also, here's the spring benchmark data for the algebra, biology, and the US history. Again, they are practicing daily with the skills that were deficient in this benchmark. All right, so here are our action steps.
The benchmark clearly told us in February that student, because we went and we met with every campus, that there was a lot of frustration by the students seeing the harder tests that they weren't used to testing on. There was a lot of apathy. And we went and had some heart to heart with the teachers as well about, okay, what else can we do to ensure that the students are gonna take it seriously for the start, you know? And is it that they don't know the information, or is it that they're frustrated because of the sudden and big changes? And so that's why we started chunking it into smaller assessments to say, all right, let's see if you even know the information. And thank God they started showing progress on that they do actually know some of it, but it's gonna be harder. It's gonna be harder. And we're gonna give you the good, the bad, the ugly. You know, where are we at this point? And I remember we had the conversation last year too, when we saw the benchmarks. It's like, we're not gonna sugarcoat anything. We're gonna say, where are we at this point? And be very transparent about all the work that they're doing. We continue daily spiraling, daily interventions and targeting. And then we're gonna see in the end, you know, where did TA decide to cut the scores because of how everybody did across the state on this new test, and go from there. But it's gonna be a constant, you know, a constant reevaluation, constant assessment. We don't want to just concentrate on one test. It's got to be daily and weekly. We're doing 2 to 3 assessment skills checks.
So start testing started today, right?
Yes, ma'am.
How would the attendance?
They did well. It was,
26 students were absent.
Yes.
Is that correct, Dr. Williams? Out of all the students? Yes.
yes, ma'am. The
Yes.
CIS were pulled to the high school from the campuses.
Yes.
They did.
Because there were like 51 at about 9 o'clock this morning, and then by the time the testing, there were only 26 absent. So we can still make up those. So
Y'all
we,
made contact with the 6, or why were they not?
Dr. Williams. You can come over here to the microphone.
Good afternoon. There were some that we were able to contact, and others we were not able to make contact with, but they will be able to retest during the retesting next Friday. On Friday, wait, wait, on Friday, yes, on Friday. Yes, ma'am.
So some of the action steps that we have put in place since February, we've looked at focused TEKS, skills-based small groups within the school day. After school tutoring has increased questioning strategies, ensuring that our teachers are asking rigorous, higher level questioning. We've also implemented the lead forward instructional strategies. Writable was a program that one of our elementary teachers told us about, and it's loved across the board. Progress monitoring through our skills checks, and then of course we're intentionally monitoring those assessments, and then have done some STAR blitzes at different campuses or STAR practices, or we're doing a lead forward STAR practices. Using those activities is a lot of fun, and the kids are doing great. I walked into a classroom today and they were using the strategies, they were having to think and justify their answers in math. They were having fun, and so they didn't even like think twice about it. Well, because the decimal's in the wrong place, and so it was fourth grade, and it was just great to see the students interacting with one another and actually justifying and having that academic conversation using that academic vocabulary as well.
I see here, real quick, Star Blitz, explain that to me a little bit. And I think maybe what I'm gonna say is, I think one of the steps could fall under Star Blitz is going out to these houses of these kids more during the week, and have the option of, do they need a ride? What is stopping you from getting to school? Is there something going on? Part of the blitz part of that could be, hey, let's see what our truancy department can come in and try to get those kids back in.
Mr. Gonzalez and Mr. Eric Gonzalez and also our communities and schools have been doing that. That's how come our attendance has improved a little bit, but they did that also today.
Yeah. I didn't see it on there, but it could fall under Star Blitz.
26 is a large number. I think. The absence on the first day.
That's been. I'm sorry. It's less than it has been in previous year.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Oh,
it's
good.
getting better. As I said, there was some that we were able to make contact with. And others, either the numbers had changed or those types of things. I know I talked to at least 5 kids today who came, who were not feeling well. But they came anyway because they knew the importance of it. So some of those that were not there today were ill and their parents did not send them.
We have, I found it where it was 360 are testing, 70 were absent. That was first thing in the morning. Phone calls were being made, visits being made. Then it dropped down to 26. So they made some headway, but 26 out of the 306, well, 360 were testing, so we would have needed what, 386? 26 out of 386. So we'll continue.
So as part of the blitz, it looks different at every campus, and depending on the content area, they designed them. What we did at the elementary is we did a review based on the highly tested TEKS clusters basically. And for instance, like for reading language arts, and at the elementary, the ITCs and Ms. Gadio helped create those pieces for us. And so we did a review of, like I said, informational text, fiction text, and within there we're adding in the revise and edit, the extended constructive response, and we're utilizing our lead forward strategies as we go through the review. So they had to go through each TEKS cluster or topic area, like for math, geometry, what do you know about geometry? And so we've taken them through different strategies throughout the last few weeks to help prepare in a fun and exciting way at the elementary.
At the middle school, again, if you remember the growth template, the growth slide, we within their cluster of teachers, each teacher concentrated on the highly tested TEKS, those TEKS that are also can that they need practice on. And so again, because growth means that if they were meets last year, they have to remain meets this year. If they were masters last year, they have to remain masters. If they were approaches, they have to remain approaches, so that we can meet the growth measure.
We did have, in some of these areas, we have absences of teachers that are either on long-term leave, FMLA, or whatever reason. We had some people, Ms. Beltran, who is our ITC at Gillette, that has been at the high school for the past few weeks, filling in, okay, because she knows English. So we tapped into her. We had Coach Ruben Garcia, who knows math, who's been at Gillette working with math students for that hardship area as well. Mr. Harris also has been helping. So we have several people, we're having to tap into the resources we have because, you know, if you have somebody on maternity leave or on long-term illness or whatever, and it is a star subject, that is a hardship. And so we try to think out of the box by getting others to come in and that we can tap into, and then we just kind of filled in for them from Central.
And at the elementary also, for the skills-based small groups, what we did was we restructured our accelerated instruction time based on approaches, needs, and masters. And we set a goal of, okay, we need these students to move up, or we need these students to stay where they were. We did a comparison chart. And so we brought all of our tutors in, all of our staff working together, breaking our students up into smaller skills-based groups so that every day for 30 minutes, they're also getting that within the school day. And then at Harvey Elementary, what we put into place was a star rally. So what they do is they extended that tutoring time based on the skills with the tutors or the teachers, just to have that extra time to practice. So that's in addition to the lead forward strategy that we're doing during the day that the ITC made. So we're looking at it in all different ways, trying to see what's going to work best for all of our students.
The students still monitor their progress.
Yes, sir. They've started making goals for their STAR tests based on their benchmark as well as some of their progress monitoring.
Star tracker, yeah, the data tracker.
All right, so additionally, the students are practicing their pacing and their brain breaks for the STAR test. Teachers are using the T-bar mini test. Those T-bar tests are on the Cambium platform. They have daily practice on the Cambium platform again. We're also looking at giving them incentives, more effort, and making sure that they're pacing themselves. Their STAR contracts. Additionally, teachers are using the Google Classroom for daily assignments and strategies. That was something we heard from teachers saying we need more practice on students looking at things online or on the computer and doing their strategies on a white sheet of paper. That was another thing that came up. Students were not utilizing the scratch sheets of paper to work out the problems on the computer. And so they're using daily assignments instead of running copies and giving them the copy. They put that on the Google Classroom so that students can look at the problem, use their scratch sheet of paper, just like the way they're going to do it when they test online. And then there was a STAR night at Pettis Elementary. I don't know if Dr. Farah wants to talk a little more about that.
Yeah, so Ms. Flores had, with her team, they had parents come in and the students taught their parents how to use the Cambium platform and showed them what the tools were. They had to actually take a practice test online so that the parents had a better understanding of what was happening with this test because it's completely different. So it was exciting. Ms. Flores, did I miss anything? Okay.
Very happy to experience what your children are experiencing, working with the tools. I mean, firsthand information, the students were telling their parents what they had to do. So it was really a great experience.
Was there like laptops or computers set up?
Yeah.
That is awesome.
Yes, sir. We have the books up, exactly what the children are using for testing.
Good job.
We have them up for the parents. Right.
I have a question. Dr. Farah, Dr. Pettis, Delma, have you all spoken to your colleagues around Region 2 and got their feedback on their benchmark scores? And
Yes.
you let us know how it's going?
I think they're
Decline. Yeah, it's about the same. There's
the same.
a decline from last year to this year. I even spoke with that lady's name in TEA that day. Heather Smalley from TEA, and she was also reiterating that there was going to be a huge dip in our scores. Yeah.
And even that handout that you got where you plugged in last year's board to see what we would fall.
Yeah.
Well, I had to redone it for KISD because I have the form, so it's like a kind of new, but yeah, you could do that for every district, for any district.
And it's kind of a
It's depressing.
hard,
Those balls.
yes. Yeah,
But we'll keep trying and we'll keep their opinions.
I would like to commend all of our teachers, all of our students, all of our instructional teacher coaches and our administrators. Because they have been working so diligently with our students, just promoting success and growth. Because we know that growth is gonna get us where we need to go, and without the support of our ITCs, our administrators and our teachers, I'm telling you, and they're tired, but they're just doing an amazing job. So definitely, I would like to commend all of them throughout the district.
We didn't want them to feel defeated when we went, so we were trying to give them some sort of incentives or things to help them out, We also, remember we got with the teachers to make sure the kids knew their rosters days before, like who were they gonna test with? And what room they would be in days before, instead of finding out that morning. We also made sure that we had ample snacks. We had little baggies, because one of the suggestions was when they're opening up the snacks that are like freshly, like in packages, it makes a bunch of noise and they disrupt. So we had PTOs helping us. Thank you to the parents who were on our PTOs and our communities and schools and everybody who helped repackage those snacks and put them into Ziploc baggies. So that way, when the kids open them, they're not disrupting everybody else, okay? We made sure that they had a little sticker or a little saying on them, kind of saying, you got this, we're proud of you. So we tried to look at the, I guess, the environment, the testing environment more, and have them more ready, have them more ready before we started the test today. So we were trying to think of everything possible. Test them with somebody that they know. Don't test them with somebody they don't know. Test them with somebody who knows how important the test is, not somebody who has no idea what the star is about. So we tried to do all that too. Pacing, showing them how to pace after about an hour, take a brain break, take a snack break. Then come back and you have to put your head down for a minute, do it, and then come back and do the next 10 or so questions. So we told them all that. And I think for the benchmark, most of them were done like in an hour or something. But today was the first STAR test. And I believe Dr. Williams, correct me if I'm wrong, that we had kids testing until about 4 o'clock.
We had about 3 students tested until 4 o'clock. We didn't start consolidating until about 1:30. So the students weren't taking their time.
Yeah.
How was the technology? Did y'all have any glitches or anything? Because it was my understanding, I think it was statewide. We had some
Dr.
earlier
Trevino?
this morning. Well, that's good.
As far as connectivity, I'm doing some monitoring right now. So I'm monitoring the campuses with some software, some free software that I'm using to make sure that the campuses are up. So to be a little more proactive in the event that a building goes down, the network goes down. No, today we did solid. I was really impressed with the Cambium platform because we've probably been a part of the last one 2 years ago with BTS. I think it just totally crashed across the state. So I'm really impressed with the Cambium service. I think they really have a robust assessment system. So it held up pretty well today. And I've been monitoring Twitter, social media. That's my go-to to kind of see if things are down, but it was more of a frustration and anxiety the community was talking about rather than the issues with technology. So I think
It was pretty solid today, because I checked at 9 and at 10, about 11, and we were still up. So thank you to all our tech people, please, technology.
I do have a question. It says here under the action steps, we're gonna use Google Classroom for daily assignments and strategies. Do we have anybody that audits that, to make sure that we use?
Dr. Farah and Dr. Sabah, do you want to explain what we're talking about? Because we're talking about putting the test type of format into the Google Classrooms.
So when we met with the junior high teachers, that was something that they asked.
they wanted to have more of the same environment, how the kids were gonna test. And so I know Google Classroom was huge during COVID, and so we brought that back up. So instead of having their daily practice in front of them, we put them on Google Classroom. Now, as far as monitoring that, the campus, I know Tanya's here, the campus, the teachers are using it. We're going in there, but in terms of somebody from, like, let's say, technology to make sure that everybody's using it, I'm not certain. It's just the campus that we go in there and make sure that that's being done in the content areas.
Okay, so that's just what I wondered. I appreciate it.
At the elementary, we're not using the Google Classroom. We've chosen to use Eduphoria as our source of working with the extended constructed responses and for the students to be typing in there. Some of the teachers are using Google Classroom for their to have the students type daily on it, but we're going paper to typing. We're doing both back and forth at the elementaries.
Thank you. Any further questions from the board? If not, thank you, Dr. Farah and Ms. Ceballos, for that presentation. We move now to item 6B, which is continuing education hours for board members. This can be found on page 61 and 62 of our packet. In accordance with board policy, annually we are to announce the continuing education hours for as of April 2023. Board member Joe Morales had 31.5 hours, Brian Kufal had 18.5, Martine Chapa had 10.5, David Garcia had 6.5, Joseph Reese had 4, James Glusing had 18.5, and Delma Salinas had 21.5. All board members completed the 2 new requirements, evaluation and implementing student outcomes. And Mr. Ruiz is still within the 120 days of his trusteeship. And so he will be picking up hours very quickly. I think we all will as we attend SLI. Just a requirement that those be announced each April.
I just have a question.
Yes, sir.
I do feel like we completed the school safety one. We did that in region 2. We're not giving credit for it. Right?
I don't know.
That was that Friday and Saturday in August.
I do. I mean, I know we went.
Yeah.
But I don't know because that was put on by the safety center out of San Marcos. And I don't know how they determine what qualifies for continuing education or doesn't qualify for continuing education. But yes, we did complete that.
I could, we also did the team building together over at San Antonio.
Yeah. And we actually had some of that we probably could have gotten credit for during our bill session. So we'll continue to monitor this to make sure that everybody remains in compliance. All right, we move now to item number 6C, which is the budget recap report and check register for March 2023. This can be found on page 63 to 70 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kufal, Dr. Pettis, members of the board. And then just point out a couple of items. If you look at that top item, Carlisle Insurance Agency, upwards of 1.4 million. So last year we were at around 1 million. And of course, we've had a couple of workshops on that. This will take us from March the 1st of 2023 all the way to February 28th of 2024. Sometime in December, we'll probably invite Carlisle to give a presentation of what it looks like for next year. If you look at Southern Computer Warehouse, we purchased out of Title I funds a large supply of computers, projectors, document cameras that are being used in the classrooms. If you look at the Claiborne County Appraisal District, we pay that 4 times a year, and every entity that collects property taxes pays the appraisal district, and we
get charged a portion of that. And that is one of our large expenditures every year. And then finally, let's look at RGO roofing and construction, 24,000. That is the last payment for that maintenance shop roof. That was one where we went out for bids and it's been leaking probably for about 2 decades and it's finally been fixed. I'll take any other questions that you have on the check register.
Question. And all the purchases with the SR2, SR3, whatever, are those sustainable for after SR goes away?
Well, that's a tough question to answer. But we are aware of that and we are working toward that. We know that this year we're using upwards of $7 million of ESSER funds. Next year we'll have about $2.7 million of ESSER funds. And then after that, we'll have no ESSER funds. So we are working toward that to make sure that we are able to. Well, we're not going to be able to sustain all of them. So we are looking at the budget and what we are going to be able to sustain. But there's no way that we're going to be able to sustain everything that we're purchasing now with the ESSER funds.
How are you going to prioritize those based on what?
Well, we will be meeting with the leadership team and then be bringing priorities to the board in our budget.
Those are our long-term plans that we meet with. And we're looking at facilities also, how much we're gonna spend for the next few years. But looking at the needs that we have, we just, the same way we've been doing it for the past 2 years is prioritizing what is absolutely needed, looking at attrition rates for some staffing, how are we staffed? We're gonna use the same model we've been using that has been able to build us, keep us in the black and build on our fund balance.
And the good point is we do have a healthy fund balance right now. We have, through the years of ESSER, we have been able to save some money that is going to hopefully help us when the ESSER cliff comes next year and even furthermore in 2 years from now.
And then now that the coding for PEMS and SHARs and all that is starting to finally get coded correctly because we got new staff, got trained, etc. We're getting some monies from that and we hadn't been for years.
How much money have we gotten on SHARs this year?
About $900,000.
SHARs?
Yes. We get interim billing about $400,000, which is every month. And then at the end of the year, we get a cost report, which we receive around $500,000 from.
The SHARs is for sped ed students?
Yes, it's for reimbursement for Medicaid costs for special education students, and everything is reimbursed at a different rate. We get reimbursed some for transportation for special education students, some for consultant services, some for salaries of nurses or teachers or diagnosticians that are serving, and everything is at a different rate.
Yeah, so up to right now, we've received $900,000 on SHARs for this year from just special ed, transportation, diags, whatever it is, whatever kind of service they're doing.
Everything, yes, in reimbursement.
Compared to last year.
It's quite a bit higher. Last year, it was, I think it was just under 700,000. I don't have the exact number. Go ahead.
Estimating.
Yes. No, 900 is, I mean, it's an estimate, but it's pretty close to ballpark.
I don't think he was ready for that question.
Right,
So if you
yeah,
want an exact amount,
you know, the conversation came up, so. If we're generating that much money for sped ed just out of that department, that's huge. Which is
Yes.
good.
Yes.
yeah, because it hasn't been for several years.
I'm just wondering.
Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Pitts.
Any other questions regarding the check register? If not, thank you, Dr. Pitts. We move now to item number 7, which is new business. Item 7A, discussion and possible action regarding National Library Week proclamation. It's can be found on page 71 and 72 of our packet. Dr. Farah.
Good evening, board. I will be reading the proclamation. The week of April 23rd through the 29th has been designated as National Library Week. Whereas libraries are not just about what they have for people, but what they do for and with people. Whereas libraries have long served as trusted and treasured institutions, and library workers and librarians fuel effort to better their communities, campuses, and schools. Whereas librarians are leaders in their institutions and organizations, in their communities, and in the nation and in the world. Whereas librarians continue to lead the way in leveling the playing field for all who seek information and access to technologies. Whereas libraries and librarians look beyond their traditional roles and provide transformative opportunities for education, employment, entrepreneurship, empowerment, and engagement, as well as new services that connect closely with patrons' needs. Whereas libraries and librarians lead their communities in innovation, providing STEAM programming, marker space, and access to training for new technologies. Whereas libraries are pioneers supporting democracy and affecting social change with a commitment to providing equitable access to information for all library users, regardless of race, ethnicity, creed, ability, sexual orientation, gender identity, or socioeconomic status. Whereas libraries lead in working with diverse communities, including people of color, immigrants, and people with disabilities, offering services and educational resources that transform communities, open minds, and promote inclusion and diversity. Whereas libraries, librarians, library workers, and supporters across America are celebrating National Library Week. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of Kingsville Independent School District hereby proclaim National Library Week, April 23rd through the 29th, 2003. We encourage all residents to visit the library this week and explore what is new at your library and engage with your librarian. Because of you and our library leaders, libraries transform.
All right, board, you've heard the proclamation. Is there a motion to adopt? Motion made by Ms. Salinas. Seconded by Mr. Glusing. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposition. Motion carries 7-0. Item 7B, discussion of possible action regarding School Nurse Recognition Week proclamation. This can be found on page 73 to 74 of our packet. Dr. Holt.
President Kufal, Superintendent Pettis, and board members. This is the reading of the proclamation for School Nurses Recognition Week that is May 6th through the 12th of 2023. Whereas school nurses strengthen and facilitate the educational process by improving and protecting the health status of children and youth. And whereas school nurses work diligently in the school environment, serving not only our youth, but also their community and providing a variety of valuable school health services. And whereas in addition to their caregiving duties, school nurses must also demonstrate clinical expertise, using sophisticated medical equipment and performing specialized procedures. In their efforts to meet student health needs, school nurses serve as a vital link between parents, teachers, and administrators. And whereas the major focus of school nursing services is the prevention of illness and disability and the early detection and correction of health problems within the school and community. And whereas all citizens recognize the contribution school nurses make to the health of our children that allows them to reach their full potential. And therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Kingsville Independent School District hereby proclaim the week of May 6th through the 12th, 2023 as School Nurse Recognition Week.
All right, board, you've heard the proclamation and recommendations from administration. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Ms. Salinas. Seconded by Mr. Chapa. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7C, discussion and possible action regarding National Speech Therapist Week proclamation, which can be found on page 75 to 76 of our packet. Mrs. Eckerman.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Pettis. The week of May 8th through the 12th of 2023 has been designated as National Speech Therapist Week. Whereas speech language pathologists, often informally known as speech therapists, are professionals educated in the study of human communication, its development, and its disorders. Whereas they treat clients with a wide variety of speech and language problems, ranging from those caused by birth defects to others resulting from stroke in older patients. Whereas these highly skilled professionals assess, diagnose, and treat people with communication difficulties in a wide variety of settings, among them clinics, hospitals, schools, and nursing homes. Whereas patients who have successful therapy may see individual improvements in different areas, including improvements in their speech, language fluency, voice, and swallowing difficulties. Whereas to highlight the importance of these services provided by speech therapists, a week in May has been designated for an awareness campaign. Whereas at this time, therefore, I encourage all Texans to recognize the essential role of our speech therapists and the important contributions that they provide. Together, they work to make a positive difference in this Lone Star State. Whereas Greg Abbott, Governor of Texas, has proclaimed statewide recognition of speech therapists, and therefore it be resolved that the Board of Trustees of the Kingsville Independent School District hereby proclaim the week of May 8th through the 12th, 2023 as National Speech Therapist Week.
All right, Board, you've heard the proclamation, the recommendation by the administration. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation? Motion made by Mr. Morales. Seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 7-0. And I believe we do have some speech therapists here that we'd like to recognize.
Thank you. Thank you.
Very ready. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
All right, we move now to item 7D, discussion and possible action regarding Teacher Appreciation Week proclamation. This can be found on page 77 to 78 of our packet. Dr. Betsonaz.
Good evening, Board and Dr. Pettis. The week of May 8th through the 12th has been designated as Teacher Appreciation Week. The following is a proclamation. Whereas teachers serve in partnership with parents of our communities, children, and whereas teachers strive to instruct students to read with comprehension, write with skill, and communicate effectively and responsibly in a variety of ways and settings. And whereas teachers teach our community's children to know and apply the core concepts and principles of mathematics, social, physical, and life sciences, civics and history, geography, arts, health and fitness, and whereas teachers inspire students to think analytically, logically, and creatively, and to integrate experience and knowledge to form reasoned judgments and to solve problems. And whereas teachers help our students understand the importance of work and how to perform effort and decisions directly affect career and educational opportunities. And whereas we support our teachers in their mission to educate the children of our community. Now, therefore, be it resolved that the Kingsville Independent School District Board of Trustees designate the week of May 8th through the 12th as 2023 as Teacher Appreciation Week. In addition, be it further resolved that the Kingsville Independent School District calls on the community to join with us in thanking and recognizing teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work.
All right, Board, you've heard the proclamation and the recommendation by administration. Is there a motion to approve the proclamation?
I make a motion to approve the commission.
Motion made by Mr. Ruiz,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Morales. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7E, discussion and possible action regarding the National Incident Management System, NIMS, which can be found on page 79 to 181 in our packet. Dr. Sandoval, Mr. Segovia.
Good evening, Mr. Koupa, Board President, Board Trustees, and Doctors Bettis. Today we'll go over the National Incident Management System, which is also known as NIMS. It's a program under the FEMA. It's a comprehensive approach to the incident management that can apply to all emergency types and sizes. The approach is intended to both be flexible and standardized. It guides all levels of government, non-governmental organizations, and the private sector to work together to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from incidents. It is comprised of several components that work together as a system to provide a national framework for preparing for, preventing, responding to, and recovering from the domestic incidents. In order to ensure the district has a more efficient and effective response to incidents, it is eligible to receive federal preparedness funds. KISD must formally adopt and implement the National Incident Management System as a component of the Emergency Operations Plan. Our components are command and management, preparedness, resource management, communications and information management, supporting technologies, and ongoing management and maintenance. Now I have Mr. Bettis going over the NIMS training, which we'll be doing as a safety and security unit.
Thank you, Mr. Segovia. Mr. Goodall, Dr. Bettis, board. And in addition to adoption, we would have to sit there and train our staff and our members from our campuses to be familiar with the incident command system, to work within that framework when we're working with other agencies that would be involved in any incident that would take place in any of our campuses. The 4 courses that are recommended are going to be ICS 100, which is an introduction to incident command system, ICS 200, basic incident command system for initial response. Then you graduate to ICS 700, which is going to be an introduction to the National Incident Management System, and then 800, which would be a national response framework. So as you can see, we work from a local area to a much broader incident management system itself. Going a little bit into more depth as far as what these courses entail. We go into the ICS 100. ICS 100, which is basically going to be the introduction of the incident command system and provides a foundation for higher level ICS training. It describes the history, features, and principles and organizational structure of ICS. It also explains the relationship between the ICS and NIMS itself. 200 goes a little bit more in depth. It reviews ICS, provides the context for ICS with an initial response, supports higher level ICS training, and also provides training and resources for personnel who are likely to be likely to assume supervisory positions within ICS. And what we're looking at here, of course, is going to be not only our security officers, but also the administrators at our campuses that would be recommended that they can complete this training. The ICS 100 defines a comprehensive approach guiding the whole community at all levels of government, non-governmental organizations, NGOs, and the private sector to work together seamlessly to prevent, protect against, mitigate, respond to, and recover from the effects of incidents. And lastly, is going to be the ICS 800, which provides guidance for the whole community Within this broad audience, the National Response Framework focuses especially on those who are involved in delivering and applying the response core capabilities in an incident management. Thank you.
Any questions?
Where will this training take place?
ICS training and the NIMS training itself in all these 4 different areas are conducted online through the FEMA.gov website. Our administrators, our security officers are already established accounts. They'll be issued a student identification number, and once they do have that, they can access the courses. Each course will run anywhere from 3 to 4 hours long, so it's not something that you can take care of all in one day. So this would be spread out. What we anticipate is looking at completing these this training during the summer, and preferably during some of the professional development days that we have upcoming.
At no cost, it's free.
And so this all just becomes kind of a supplement, an appendix to our existing security policy.
Yes, sir. And of course, with the emergency operation plan, it also asks for the adoption formally from the school board.
All right, are there any further discussions?
I appreciate the work they're doing and being way ahead on everything as far as the district is concerned. And moving forward and getting the training we need, John, and there's a lot of people, detail guys right there too. They're very detailed. I appreciate that. Thank you.
Mr. Goya, is it something that other school districts are already doing? We're just now getting into, or are we ahead of the curve?
Well, we have a new person in charge at the service center, Mr. Rota, who just the fire chief that just retired, he's overseeing now. And we did meet with him the other day, maybe about 2 weeks ago, something like that, and he recommended these. But we already, Arnold and I already been talking about it, getting these names, and we had started the process back when. Yeah, sometime in the year, we already had started going over these, the 100, which has already been completed. Now we'll just go getting with the 200 and the 700.
We hosted a meeting here for the Kingsville area, I mean, the Clairville County.
I think y'all are gonna.
Yes.
Taking our kids.
And, you know, from where we were a year ago, where we are today.
Night and day.
I commend all of them, very much so.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen. All right, board, you've heard the presentation and the recommendation by administration that we approve the National Incident Management System as presented. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion made by Mr. Garcia,
I'll second.
seconded by Ms. Salinas. Any further discussion? If not, all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Item 7F, discussion and possible action regarding the interlocal student transfer and tuition agreement between Kingville Independent School District and Ricardo Independent School District for the 2023-2024 school year. We found on page 182 to 184 of our packet. Dr. Pitts.
Thank you, Mr. Kupal. We have had this MOU for the last several years with Ricardo ISD. The 2 main factors are, number 1, we would receive the maximum tuition allowed by TEA, which this year was close to $2,000. It has gone up in the last few years. So if you multiply by, let's say, 30 students, that next year we will hopefully have, that's probably about $60,000, and it'll probably go up next year, but those rates have not been issued by TEA yet. So we would not only get that tuition, which is to recoup the loss in taxes. They do not live in our zone, so we do not collect taxes from them. But we would also get their ADA as well. That is the main responsibility on their side. The main responsibility on our side is that we will transport the students. We will pick the students up from the Ricardo School building. We will transport them to the schools here. Then we will return them to the Ricardo School building at the end of the day. I'll take any questions that you have.
What's the contract from what day to what day, Dr.?
It's for the school year, so it will be for the 2023-2024 school year.
They've got plenty of time now to sign and ready to go. Next thing is, you next year's calendar year, they're aware that on Fridays, they have an opportunity to drive the high school kids that like need to come to the high school. The ones that are, transferring over here to. After the eighth graders that are coming over to HMT, they know already that they'll be transportation, those parents know already, right, that there'll be pickup, there'll be lunches served for them and all.
So,
On those Fridays, yeah, are you having a new calendar?
Yeah, I'll try.
Well, I've been in close communication with the superintendent there, explaining her, and that's why she was at the town hall. Also, so she could explain to the parents over there, about our calendar, as much as possible. We're trying to communicate as much as possible.
Good. Well, I've got some other questions also is if we have any extracurricular charges that aren't part of the regular educational process, such as ag or football or sports or things like that, are we able to charge them for any incurred expenses?
we have never charged them for incurred expenses in the past. The maximum tuition limit we've been able to charge is established by TEA. But we have never charged them extra for participating in any type of extracurricular activity.
Well, I mean, that's for our own students, we provide transportation, we provide faculty at different events. And I was just wondering if they're going to participate in the events and there's nobody else from Kingsville going, who's paid at that point? Is it going to be so up or is it going to be?
Well, there are students.
That's what I want to make sure. I just wanted to get that.
There are students enrolled in Kingsville ISD, but there are students. We treat them just like any other.
We're getting ADA from them.
Any student that's.
Right, that's all I'm saying. Thank you.
Dr. Fix, how many students do you know that we have now enrolled from Ricardo? Do you have any idea how many more or less?
Well, it's in the 30s, but I don't have an exact number.
And are we looking at possibly that many coming next year or?
I would assume our numbers have been fairly constant. They have ranged anywhere from 30 to 40, usually in any given year.
And I just one other question: Are we visiting and showcasing what we have as far as going to those campuses?
Yes, Dr. Bess and I can have that information when we just went actually to Ricardo. Yes, when was that? If you want to, the counselor.
And your question is particularly about the counseling, sir?
Well, no, just what we have so much to offer here.
Yes.
Are we showcasing our bands, our athletics, our everything that we have
Yes.
that people around us might not have?
Right, and so one of the things that not only the district, but our campus counselors are coordinating as we showcase when we invite them to come here. We're also networking with the surrounding school districts and then looking proactively at what new pieces we want to be able to showcase so that it may draw interest from our students. For example, the new aviation course that the Naval Base is going to be partnering with us in the near future. That has sparked some interest that people have actually stopped and wanting to know more information. So our high school guidance and counselors, we talked about this is the time now to begin publicizing what's coming and also provide opportunity for students to go visit. And the Naval Base has been so open to bring them so they can see what it actually looks like, so that we can also be able to share with the surrounding school districts who might be able to partner and be able to participate in those things.
Will there be anything also, maybe hosting something at our campus where we invite area schools? We've done that in the past.
Yes, and Dr. Williams, you have that information too, because we brought them over here and then we went over there. Correct, to Ricardo?
Oh, good.
Yes, so we've done both.
Good.
They've come here in buses from the districts to our high school domes. And we had presentations and then we showcased all of what HMK showcases, and they were able to walk amongst them, and we've also been able to do the same. So we do that periodically. I think it was in early late fall, and early spring when those dates.
Thank you.
Any further questions? If not, you've heard the presentation and the recommendation from administration that we adopt the interlocal student transfer tuition agreement between Kingsville Independent School District and Ricardo Independent School District. The 2023-2024 school year. Is there a motion to that effect? Great motion. Motion made by Mr. Chapa. Seconded by Mr. Garcia. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. The board will now enter into closed session in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Government Code 551.071 and 551.074 to deliberate and consider the following. A, consider and deliberate regarding resignation of contracted employee. B, consider and deliberate regarding superintendent annual evaluation goals and objectives. C, consider and deliberate with legal counsel regarding legal and personnel matters. No action will be taken until we return to open session. We are entering closed session at 7:10 p.m.
You know that.
Y'all are doing great, matter.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
All right, we now return to open session, to take necessary action on matters which the board may discuss in open session upon which action may be taken. We're returning to open session at 7:40 p.m. Item A, consider approval of resignation of contracted employee.
Administration recommends that the Board of Trustees approve the resignation of contracted employee as discussed in executive session.
You've heard the recommendation of administration. Is there a motion to approve? Motion made by Mr. Garcia,
Second.
seconded by Mr. Ruiz. Any further discussion? Not all those in favor say aye. Any opposition? Motion carries 7-0. Ladies and gentlemen, there being no further action to become before this board, I'll declare this regular meeting of the Board of Directors of Kingville Independent School District adjourned at 7:41 p.m.